everyone, so today I'm going to teach you how to make butterbeer as a special Halloween feature. Butterbeer is one of the most popular drinks in Harry Potter. It's actually a very old recipe. The first recipe that came out was in the 1500s in a cookbook, and that's the recipe I'm going to teach you today, although I have made some tweaks to it to make it more creamy and more towards the description of the recipe that was in the book. Not the stuff that they sell at the theme park, because that's rubbish. The stuff, the drink that made you dream whenever you read the books whenever you were a kid. So that's the recipe I'm going to teach you how to make today. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need some ale. Ale is very common in England as a drink. It's quite an old drink. So what we're going to do is just pop them in a pot. Try not to lose the bubbles by pouring it too high. And we're going to need 3 bottles of it. And what we're going to do next is just turn on the heat to very, very low. So I'm putting it on number 2 out of 8. So just really very low temperature, because we don't want to lose the alcohol. If you want to get rid of the alcohol, you can put it on that just tiny bit higher and let it simmer a little bit. That'll get rid of all the alcohol. You're going to see it steaming away. However, first of all, it's a shame. Why would you want to get rid of it unless you have small children? But also, you're going to get rid of all the fizziness inside. It's just very slightly fizzy, but you're going to lose that if you cook it too much. So I personally think that it's better to just leave it, on low, especially ale. It is going to lose some of its alcohol, and we're going to be adding some rum to it. But what I suggest is just leave out the rum if you want to have it more alcohol free, and it'll still have just that little bit, but not enough to get you totally drunk. So next thing, we're going to put in our spices. Now you can use ready ground up spices for this, but I'm going to use fresh ones. You can do whatever you prefer. Now the first one I have about 5 cloves here. I'm just going to put them in the mortar and pestle. And just bash them. You can use just the back of a wooden spoon to do this, because it's quite roughly. We're just gonna pound it. So put that in there, into the witch's brew. And then I've got some nutmeg, and we're going to put in about the equivalent of half a teaspoon, so not that much. That's probably about the quarter of a nutmeg. Same thing with our cinnamon. Now again, you can just use powdered one, but I'm just going to grate it in with my ridiculously tiny grater, which is very handy. And again, this is half a teaspoon, so the same quantity as we have in nutmeg. Now the last one we're going to use is ginger. And again, this I'm going to have about 1 teaspoon of it. And I'm going to just grate this in again. And of course you can use just powdered ginger instead, but then you would want, again, half a teaspoon of it, or even a 1/4 teaspoon, depending on how much you like it. So next thing, I'm going to add butter, about this much. Just eyeball it and pop it into the hot or warm ale. And just toss it around slowly again, just to keep the maximum goodness of the drink. So after adding the butter, I'm just going to put it up to about medium heat, because we do want it to warm up. So now that it's already gotten to room temperature, or a little higher even, I'm just putting it to medium heat so it gets nice and warm and it'll melt the butter. Next thing we're using is whipping cream. To add to the creaminess. This is not in the original recipe, by the way. Everything else was, but not cream. So what we're going to do is get all of that goodness out, and then we're just going to loosely whip it just to make it frothy. So that's enough, it's just loosely whipped, and that's enough to put it in. So what we're going to do is just pour it in gently. And it is floating to the surface. So we're just going to slowly mix it in, just very gently. Doesn't have to be totally incorporated, because there will be more mixing later. So what I'm doing next is I'm putting this condensed milk. This is about 1/3 of a cup of condensed milk, sweetened condensed milk, and I'm mixing that with 3 egg yolks. And to that we're adding 1/4 cup of brown sugar, just light brown sugar, and we're just going to mix this until it becomes pale and fluffy. Okay, now next thing is we're going to take this mixture that we made, the egg yolks and sugar. As you can see, it's kind of blended, but there's still some loose stuff. That's okay. Just pour all of that in. And then using the spatula, because it will stick to the bottom, just run it across and mix it gently. So an easier way to pour it is I'm just going to put it all into, like I'm going to ladle it into this beaker, and it's just going to help me pour it into the glasses without having it dribble all over the place. So this is the finished product, beautiful glass of butterbeer, and well, first of all I'd like to tell you about the taste of it. It's just lovely and very warm and creamy. You can really taste the spices behind it. It's got a subtle hint of almost like a beery flavour. It's, you know, it's a lovely warm drink and it's really festive. So you could enjoy this all the way through to, you know, to the end of the winter really. And so I hope you give this a try. It's a great way of having something special at a party. So hopefully you'll try and make it, and cheers! Mm.